Good evening. Before I get started, I want to put in a special plug for our Wednesday night summer series. If you've not been taking advantage of our summer series, you're really missing out. We've been having some outstanding speakers. We've had some already. We've got some scheduled for the rest of July. We've got some scheduled all of August, and they are really good speakers. And we certainly invite all of you to be. And I know most of you that are here on Sunday night are here also on Wednesday nights, but if you do know someone that could benefit by being here on Wednesday night for our summer series, please let them know. And I'm not sure there's anyone that couldn't benefit from the lessons that are being taught. This past Wednesday night, Chuck Webster spoke on forgiving one another, and he did a really great job. But when Chuck came in the front door, like so many, you introduce yourself to people, and Chuck said, I asked him after I introduced myself, I said, where are you from, Chuck? And he said, well, I'm from Hoover for the past 18 years, but before that, I was raised in East Alabama, Alexandria. And I explained to him that I went to Jacksonville State, and I knew some of the surrounding communities, and Alexandria is certainly one of those. So I had a seat, listened to a great lesson. And then after his lesson on Wednesday night, and there were a lot of people wanting to talk to him, and myself as well, I wanted to let him know what a good job he had done and that how much we appreciated. I asked if he knew an author that's from that area. I don't know if you've heard of Rick Bragg, but Rick Bragg's a famous Southern author. He's a humor writer. He writes for Southern Living. He's written 11 novels. He's actually won a Pulitzer Prize. But I told Chuck, I asked him if he had met Rick, and he said he had not. He said, but he is one of my favorite authors, and I've read several of his novels. And I said, I have not read any of his novels. Sandra has read one or two, but I said, Rick was in Trustful about 2 or 3 months ago, and he was on a book tour. The new book was The Speckled Beauty by Rick Bragg. And it's one of those things that when you go, if you, for an extra $15, you can pick up a copy of the book and it'll be autographed. So I did that. One of the things, and let me just kind of go off chart here for just a minute, but Rick was very entertaining when he spoke at Trustful, and Sandra and I were able to go. And he writes for Southern Living, and you may know Southern Living, and I do through my wife, but it's got great recipes and decorating ideas and travel things. But Rick Bragg writes an article in the back of every Southern Living, and I've been familiar with those. I've read those, and he's a great writer. And he's a Southern writer. When he writes about going to the beach, he writes about going to Gulf Shores and Panama City and Destin, just like us. If he writes about going to the mountains, he's talking about Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge. Maybe northern Georgia, but that's about as far as it goes. But someone asked him, said, Rick, how have you been writing for Southern Living for 10 years? And why have you been writing for this sophisticated magazine? And he said, well, the main reason I've been doing it is their checks clear. So, and he has a certain way about it. I'm going to read a little excerpt from the book, but the book, and I told Chuck that I had finished it, and he did not know that Rick had a new book, but it is a very good book, and I got to thinking when I was talking to Chuck, I said, well, this thing has some life lessons, this book. And The Speckled Beauty, it sounds like a fishing book, but it's not. It's about a dog that's the Speckled Beauty, but his name is Speck, and we'll go into that in just a minute. But anyway, Rick tells the story of this very flawed dog. He's running with the strays. He's out on the ridge, and his mother has a nice big farm in the Jacksonville area. And Rick is there, his brother's there, his brother's wife, their children. And they don't explain exactly who's there, but it is the home place for Rick. And he sees this dog out on the ridge, and the dog starts coming closer, and he starts feeding him. And he feeds him biscuits and sausages and hamburger. I don't recommend this for home, but they never feed this dog anything but human food. So, but the dog starts being drawn in. He's been on the road. Again, as when he views him, the dog's blind in one eye. His ears are torn off through fights with whatever, out in the wild, running with the pack, and he's fearless, but he's just not quite trusting. But anyway, as the story moves on, the dog becomes part of the family. Rick has not got a dog, so it becomes Rick's dog. The mother and the brother, they've adopted other dogs that are more like Lassie than Speck. And Speck is not Lassie. Speck is a terrible dog. He chases the livestock, he fights with the cats, he chews things up, he chases the FedEx man, so he's a terrible, terrible dog. But Rick has become involved with this dog. Rick's got a lot of health problems. Rick's just a little bit younger than myself, but he's got a lot of health problems, and it's really, he kind of identifies with the dog. And then the dog, but as the dog is fed and becomes part of the family, he's a watchdog. He's a herding dog, so he's a pretty good sized dog, and he's fearless, like I mentioned. But if whatever in the foothills of the Appalachians, coyotes or foxes or whatever that come in to try to get the hens or the kittens or whatever, he guards, and the family comes to appreciate that. And then he really becomes a part of the family. It becomes a beloved animal for him. Still a terrible dog, but a beloved animal. Let me read just an excerpt, and this is near the end of the book, and then I'm going to do a parallel, and we'll talk about some lessons, read a little out of the Bible, and then we'll draw some conclusions, and then the lesson will be yours. But I'm going to read about 2 pages from the book, and this is about Christmas time, and Rick's mom even loves the dog now. So the dog is beloved by the whole family. It's about Christmas time. My mother tells me to begin watching the grocery stores for good deals on a frozen turkey. It will need to be a big one since we have to allow for Speck. He ate so much last Thanksgiving, he went into a brief coma. I scratch out a Christmas list with an old reporter's notebook and a number 2 pencil. It is shorter this year. The great family is smaller. All the more reason not to waste it. My people like old-fashioned things, like gold crosses and good pocket knives, thick sweatshirts, and good socks. They like food that they would not buy for themselves, like tins of dates, figs, Brazil nuts, pecans, walnuts, cashews, and Georgia peanuts, and boxes of fudge, chocolate-covered cherries, and fruitcakes. I show my mother the list, and she reads and nods till she gets to the end. She says, "What about the dog?" She sends me back to my room with my pencil like a child. Speck's list, I write. Sliced ham, sliced turkey, sliced chicken, cocktail weenies, 7 rubber balls, 6 to bury, 1 to chew, new collar with fluorescent stripe, greenies, assorted treats, giant bone stuffed with peanut butter, dog bed. I scratch that last one out, then write it back in. It has been years since he ate the last one. Maybe he has changed. Then I went back and scratched it out again. I still suffer from all the ailments of Job. I still feel some days like I have been visited by everything but locusts, that there is no joy in this sorry old life. But in the midst of such stark, real suffering, I shut my mouth. The only one who really knows my mind is out in the weeds and trees. We talk every night on the steps outside the kitchen door, and when I cannot sleep, we talk again, sometimes until the early morning or till he hears a booger out there in the dark and crashes up the mountain after it. I won't go inside while he is out there, and sometimes I nod off on the steps and only wake up when he sticks his cold nose in my ear or in my eye. "Good night, buddy," I always say, then always, "I'll see you in the morning." I say it like I have some control over it all. Most nights before I close my eyes, I hear a ruckus out there in the leaves, hear the urgent bark and I stumble out the door to rescue some innocent possum or treed cat, or just to poke my head out the door so he will see me and know that I have registered his diligence, that I have entered it into whatever ledger it is he thinks that I keep. He just knows for sure there is one. Did you see me? And he knows he will never be invisible again. And the story of Speck, the flawed dog with so many problems, and the way he became a beloved figure of the family, it reminds me so much of our church family. We're all flawed people. We are all sinners. We all have problems. And we can be loved. We are loved. Let me just read just a couple of verses from 1 Corinthians 12. It's about the body, and you can read all of 1 Corinthians 12 if you'd like. I'm going to read just a few selected verses, but you'll certainly get the point. For as the body is one and hath many members, and all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we are all baptized into one body. For the body is not one member, but many. But now hath God set the members, every one of them, in the body as it hath pleased him, that there should be no divisions in the body, but that the members should have the same care one for another. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it. Or one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now ye are the body of Christ, and members in particular. So we're all members of the body, and we have different roles. And it goes on to explain about not being the hand, not being the foot, not being the eye, not being the ear, and so forth. But we are all part of the body of Christ. We are not invisible. God has his own ledger. We are loved by God. We are loved by our church family. And may God bless this good church, and may God bless his reading of the word. If you do have a need that the church can help you with at this time, please come forward as we stand and sing.